Hi there, this is Erica Merrill, and I am the founder of Perfect Legal Video. And today we'd like to talk about a very hot topic that everyone is on everyone's mind, and that is the coronavirus. But we want to talk about it in the way that um, it pertains to the jails and the prisons, and finding out what kind of effects that the coronavirus has in those areas. And joining me for this discussion today is attorney Brian Jones out of Ohio, criminal attorney. So he's got a lot of experience with courts and jails and prisons and helping his clients. Um, and I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us today on this serious topic.
Thanks for having me, Erica. I appreciate you addressing this. This is very important.
So I feel like from the brief conversation we had before starting this interview, probably the part of the population that is going to be least taken care of in this situation are going to be the people who have been arrested and are in jail awaiting trials before they are sentenced to prison, and of course the people that are in prison. So let's jump right in and talk about how this would happen, how this disease would be spread within the context of jail and prison.
Sure, Erica. So jails and prisons have a constant churn of inmates and staff coming in and going out that is going to increase the likelihood of an outbreak both in the jail and in the surrounding communities. At any given time in America, there are over 600,000 people in jail, and there's about 10.6 million times each year people are coming in and going out of jail and or prisons. And that doesn't even count the staff and the corrections officers that run these facilities. Most people that go into jail are only in there for 2 to 3 days. So if there's an outbreak in the surrounding community, the people coming in and going out are more likely to expose both those incarcerated and those in the community surrounding the facility.
And when we talk about this, I mean, right now, the people that are in prison have been in prison for a long time. I mean, at first thought, you might think, well, they might be the safest because they're not outside, dealing with the mass hysteria that we're dealing with right now, and all of the coughing and the people spreading their germs around. But in fact, there's plenty of staff, lawyers, and and people that take care of the jails that are in and out of there every single day. They're in and out from the real world into the jails and the prisons every single day.
That's right. And the other issue is that in those facilities, there's a lack of hand sanitizer. It's often considered contraband in most facilities because hand sanitizer has alcohol in it. And there's a lack of adequate hygiene tools, soap, water. It's a communal setting in most facilities. So you've got people unable to practice social distancing, staying 6 feet away from one another. It's just the perfect breeding ground for this sort of disease to spread rapidly and tragically. Back in 2009, the H1N1 or swine flu absolutely ripped through the prison and jail systems, causing massive infections and death.
Oh my God, this sounds like one of the scariest pieces of the coronavirus story that I've heard, because what we're doing on the outside is we are closing schools. We are not going to have sporting events. We are, government facilities are closing. I know that we just talked about before we started this, like my child is going to be out of her elementary school, and your child is going to be out of their elementary school as well. And this is all to practice social distancing. And we are all washing our hands. I don't know how many times more than I used to. I mean, I think of myself as a clean person, but I'm definitely washing my hands maybe 4 or 5 times more than I used to. And that's just not an opportunity that these prisoners have. And unfortunately, what's going to happen, it sounds like, is that no matter what we do on the outside, if we don't find a way to fix the prisons, that is going to be a way for this problem, this virus, to just keep coming in and out. It's got its breeding ground, and it doesn't really matter what we do on the outside if we can't kill it on the inside of the prisons and jails, too.
Well, absolutely. So, according to the CDC, two categories of people are most at risk to suffer serious consequences and even death from the coronavirus. First are people who are over 60 years old, and the second category of people who are those living with a pre-existing condition, such as diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, other pulmonary conditions, asthma, cystic fibrosis, COPD, things like that. The reality is that in our jails and prisons, the population percentage of individuals that suffer from these pre-existing conditions is substantially higher than the United States population in general. So not only do we have a situation where this illness can spread like wildfire, but we have, while mostly not people over the age of 60, the other category, individuals with pre-existing conditions, appear at a higher rate than in the general population. So not only is this a situation where the disease is going to spread quickly, but it's going to spread quickly to some of the most vulnerable people in our country.
And one of the pieces that we talked about earlier was just, hey, we know that there's a lot more of the coronavirus, of positive people with the coronavirus than are being reported, because there's not a lot of testing going on. Certain countries are doing a much better job than we are. Um, you look at some of the states and they'll say, oh, we've got 50 people, we've got 10 people. And in reality, there's so many people that are asymptomatic that the numbers are probably thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people. Whole populations might have been exposed at one point or another, and it's very likely. But as we were talking about in earlier, it's just testing isn't really being done outside of the prisons. And you said that testing would most likely never be done inside the prisons.
It's very unlikely. Across the board, jails and prisons are grossly understaffed from a medical and treatment perspective. They don't have equipment there in the prisons and in the jails that is necessary to sustain life in cases of severe infections. They don't have ICU units. They don't have ventilator beds. So individuals that are, again, most at risk, who actually do come down with the illness and suffer from it, will likely have to be transported out of the institution into a hospital or a secure hospital facility. The reality is that jailers aren't taking a new arrestee's temperature as he or she is coming into their institution. They're just not doing it. They're taking their photograph, they're doing a DNA swab, they're taking their fingerprints, and they're tossing them in a holding cell. And then once they get all their paperwork done, they're tossing them out into general population. And we've already discussed all of the issues with people coming in and out, lack of social distancing, and lack of hygiene supplies in that situation.
Right, and you mentioned too the triple bunking, and when we were talking about the difference between the jail and the prison, the jail is a really scary situation for people that are a lot of your clients. They get arrested for a DUI, and they may be in the jail overnight or over the next couple nights, and there's going to be delayed justice is one of the things that you were mentioning. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. So here in Ohio, the Federal District Court for the Southern District of Ohio has already put a moratorium on all hearings that are not absolutely necessary. And that includes all trials over the next 30 days have been continued. Now, you have to assume that some of the people that are scheduled for trial in the next 30 days are unable to make bond and are presently sitting in jail waiting their day in court and are not going to get that for another month. Now, some of these people have already been in jail for months and they saw an end date in sight. They saw an end to their improper incarceration coming. And now that's going to be delayed another month. And that's another month at a minimum, Erica. This could go on for an indefinite period of time. Likewise, county courts have put on similar moratoriums. They've delayed hearings. They're ordering attorneys to appear by phone and have their clients available by phone. So we don't know where this is going to go in the next 30, 60, 90 days. It could push justice out indefinitely for some of these people.
Wow. So that's really scary. And in the meantime, these are people that are awaiting a trial. That they could be found innocent, and now they're in a situation where it's basically an incubator for the disease that they can't get out of. So they could be physically uh, at risk for a long time, and they would have to pay with the effects of their health in addition to paying with their time if they're on the inside, or maybe they shouldn't even have been arrested at all, depending on how the trials go. So
Sure.
it's a much higher price that they're paying, um, whether they're guilty or innocent.
Yeah, and so what we've done, Erica, is we've put together a motion to modify bond based on these circumstances that we're filing on behalf of our clients that are at a higher risk due to the lack of proper sanitation and proper hygiene tools, the lack of social distancing, the shortness of medical staff, the lack of preparation to identify and exclude asymptomatic transmission in facilities, and the inability for quarantine of people who are exposed, people who are symptomatic. Those clients of ours that are at high risk should be released pending resolution of their case.
I mean, it sounds like cruel and unusual punishment if they don't allow people to get into a safe situation.
Absolutely. And we're making that argument for pretrial detention, and we're making that argument at sentencing too, for individuals that are facing incarceration. Um, there's a legitimate argument to be made that a non-custodial probationary sentence is more appropriate in light of the risks that we're seeing with the outbreak of this disease.
I mean, it sounds like you're doing what you can for your clients, to help them and keep them safe uh, in this new day of the coronavirus, and right, and definitely not knowing exactly what's going to happen, how long it's going to happen, and they're going to be sitting around in danger, basically health for their health, um, for an insurmountable amount of time. Are there any other suggestions that you might have for the jails and the prisons, that they could possibly put into effect besides, what you're doing already?
Well, if I had any control over the jails, I would encourage them to isolate individuals who have a fever. Follow the protocols that the CDC have put in place. Um, Keep people who are at high risk um, away from individuals who are coming into the facility. Keep them in a safe or a solitary location. While that doesn't solve the problem of the daily influx of jail staff, um, it does create a better situation keeping them away from other inmates. Under no circumstances should solitary confinement be used against children or people with serious mental illness, or people that are pregnant or people with disabilities. But in some circumstances, in order to keep them safe and healthy, that's a better option. Um, you know, when medical quarantine is ordered, we need to have the jails follow those quarantine protocols. And if they don't, um, we need to have lawyers step up and enforce the Eighth Amendment rights of their clients to say, look, this is what you said, Erica, cruel and unusual punishment. And people shouldn't be subjected to the possibility of death just because they have a weekend jail stay.
Yeah, I mean, and that's true. I mean, it's a very extreme circumstance when people are in real life sentenced to death, and it shouldn't be an accident that it happens. It should be like they murdered somebody in cold blood or whatever those typical crimes are typically. Um, it shouldn't be because they had a weekend stay in the jail cell, as you said. And a lot of those people have never been arrested before in their lives. They just had one too many one night, and might not have even been very far over the limit, may not have really been that impaired or intoxicated. It's just such a scary situation for a lot of folks right now.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we go? I think this was a really interesting and informative interview. I, there's not a lot you can do about it, but I know you're doing what you can.
Yeah, what I would like to add and let people know is that if you have a case that's currently going on, reach out to your attorney and make sure that your attorney is keeping you up to date on the current court policies regarding the coronavirus outbreak and how that's being dealt with in your particular jurisdiction. Second, I would encourage all the defense attorneys out there to be vigilant in advocating for your client and use this unfortunate outbreak as another tool in your belt to keep your clients out of incarcerative settings. Like we discussed a number of times today, Erica, getting a DUI or getting some other minor infraction should not result in a death sentence. And lastly, and most importantly, just remind everybody, stay safe, wash your hands, keep your distance from those that have obvious symptoms, and follow the guidelines of the CDC. Let's listen to the professionals on this and reduce the consequences that are absolutely coming our way.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm sure there'll be some updates later on, and we'll bring you back on and discuss those. Thank you so much for these initial comments and things that we should look out for, and we'll definitely get this out on social media so that everyone can see some of the tips that you've given in regard to this and helping some of these cases go better and not resulting in a death sentence when it should just be, a little bit of time in prison, if even that, if they don't, get off on some of these charges, which is absolutely possible.
Absolutely. Thank you,
So
Erica.
yes, and everybody out there, remember, if you have a situation or someone that has a situation where they're pulled over for a DUI or any criminal matters, please call Brian Jones's office. The people there are fantastic, and they know their stuff. They're at court every single day fighting for their clients, helping get the best options to them, and they really know the law backwards and forwards, as you can tell, and they care, and that's really important too. So
And we've got a giant bottle of hand sanitizer in the lobby.
And it is not contraband in their office.
Contraband in my office.
Nobody's drinking the hand sanitizer.
No, they are not.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, and we'll look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Take care, Erica. Thank you.
Thank you.